near-death experiences. What's a near-death experience?
A near-death experience is when a person is clinically dead. That is generally no brain waves, no respiration, no heartbeat.
Waves.
Yeah,
Ooh.
they're clinically dead. Yet they're going to be revived. And so they're dead for a period of time, clinically dead, but they're not permanently dead. So the body will be revived at some point.
So by the measurements of science, they're dead.
That's right. That's right.
So maybe right there, if we just pause, like maybe right there, we have further evidence that science, while useful, of course, and life-improving in some ways, does not have the tools to measure the totality of the experience.
Well, you know,
so they're actually like, that's the failure. Like, they're obviously not dead.
Yeah, that's right. They are coming back. That's right. All the signs are that they're dead. But, you know, the Bible says that, and Christianity teaches that when a person dies, their spirit separates from their body. And this is what we see in a near-death experience. This is evidence for the soul, for the spirit. So the physical body is clinically dead. There's no sign of life in the body. They're still working on you.
Has there ever been a culture that we're aware of in the entire span of human history that did not believe in the soul?
They all did.
In fact, that people were just meat puppets and
I quote experts in the book that talk about that every civilization believed in the spirit, a soul that continues to live on after we die.
Our leaders don't believe that.
Well, that's not only tragic, it's dangerous, because if you believe we are only our brain, we're only neurons that are firing, that means technically we have no free will. And seriously, you're saying we don't have free? How do you punish someone for doing something wrong if they really didn't have free will?
It also means we have no inherent rights.
We have no right and wrong.
Does a rock have a right? No.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that should be the acid test for leadership. If you don't believe human beings have souls, if that's not the basis of the way you understand other people, this is a separate person with a distinct and unique soul.
Right.
If you don't believe that, you can have no power.
Yeah.
In our society. Is that fair?
I like that. I never thought of that before, but I certainly wouldn't trust a person personally, morally, if they believed only that we are a brain.
I wouldn't give them a driver's license. That's scary.
It is scary.
You don't think other people have souls?
Exactly.
What? You're a psychopath.
Exactly. I have a interview in my book with a PhD from Cambridge University in neuroscience who says the evidence is so persuasive that yes, indeed, we do have a soul. We do have a spirit.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, neuroscientists from Thank you for confirming.
What's interesting is that we have cases where people are clinically dead, their spirit separates from their body, and they see or hear things that would have been impossible for them to see or hear if their spirit had not actually separated from their body. So this is confirmation that the soul exists.
Interesting.
And let me give you some examples. There's a woman named Maria. She was dying in a hospital in London, England. And but she said, I was conscious the whole time. And so here they are working on her body, trying to bring her back. She said, my spirit floated out of my body. I met a divine being. But mainly I'm looking down from the ceiling of the hospital room at the resuscitation efforts. I'm watching them trying to revive my body. And then at some point, the reviving works and the spirit returns to the body. And she says, by the way, see the ceiling fan here in this room, the hospital room? There's a red sticker on top of one of the blades of the ceiling fan. Now, you couldn't see it from the room because it's on the top of one of the blades of the ceiling fan. But she saw it because from her perspective near the ceiling watching resuscitation, she was looking down. So they got a ladder. They went up there. Sure enough, on the top of this blade, here's the sticker exactly as she has described it. That tells me that she really did have an out-of-body experience, just as the Bible describes. And this is extremely common. We have a woman, a young girl. She was 9 years old, as I recall, 8 or 9. She drowned in a swimming pool at YMCA. Horrible. Her brain had swelled. She had no respiration, no heartbeat. She was clinically dead. So they brought her to the hospital to keep her body alive mechanically till they decided what to do, And they continued to try to revive her. But as it turns out, 3 days later, she was revived. And with no brain damage. And she said, by the way, I was...
Seriously?
Yeah. And she said, I was conscious the whole time. And they said, well, that's not possible. And so the doctors who were skeptical said, here's a piece of paper and a crayon. Why don't you draw the emergency room where we took you when you were dead? So she picks up the crayon. She draws the emergency room exactly as it appears. And then she said, by the way, one night when my parents visited me in the hospital, I followed them home. And I watched as my mom, she was making chicken soup with rice on the stove. And my dad was sitting in a certain chair and he was looking in a certain direction. And her brother, she said, was playing with a G.I. Joe Jeep in his bedroom. And these are the clothes that they were wearing. Everything was exactly correct. How do you explain that if she didn't have an authentic out-of-body experience while she was clinically dead? So this is affirmation that near-death experiences do point toward a spirit, a soul that separates from our body at the time of death. Now, it can return to our body if we're revived, and that's what happens in these cases. Interestingly, there was a study done of 21 blind people, either blind since birth or shortly thereafter. They were able to see or had visual-like perceptions during their near-death experiences. So there's a woman named Vicky.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Vicky Umapeg, 26 years old. She's blind, virtually since birth. She is killed in a car crash. She's a passenger in a car. She's killed. But she said later, I was conscious the whole time. And her spirits floated out. She watched she's able to see the resuscitation efforts. She was able to see childhood friends who she'd never seen in person, but she knew intuitively who they were. Oh, that's Mary. That's Jimmy. She sees birds for the first time. She sees trees and so forth. And then when her body is revived and her spirit returns to her body, she's blind again. Medical researchers said this is impossible based on current medical knowledge. How does this happen? So there's a phenomenon here that tells me that there's corroboration, that there's something to this idea that we have a soul, a spirit that is different than our physical brain and body. And I'll add this is really important. John Burke I interview him for my book. John Burke is a Christian pastor who, with an engineering degree and science background, who studied 1,500 cases of near-death experiences in depth. He has video interviews with people and so forth. And here's his conclusion. He said, Lee, if you look at not how people interpret what happens, because we all interpret things through our worldview.
Of course.
If you're a Muslim, if you're a Hindu, you're going to interpret things differently. Forget that. Set that aside. Just look at what actually takes place during a typical near-death experience. That is consistent with the Christian Bible.
And what is it that's consistent?
Well, things like encountering a divine being, things like encountering people who had preceded you in death, things like a life review, where your life is reviewed and you not only experience with this divine figure next to you who's encouraging you. It's not a judgmental kind of a way. It's you're judging yourself. You're reviewing every little action you took, but you're able for the first time to see the ripple effects of that. So I may have done something that hurt you years ago, and I never realized the impact that had on you and how that caused you to do this, that, and the other thing. And yet in this life review, you see not only what you did, and you did good and you did bad, but the ramifications of it.
Yes.
That takes place. Now, you're not permanently dead. The Bible says in Hebrews, we're appointed once to die and then the judgment. So you would think that, biblically speaking, you would die and then you would encounter judgment. Well, you're not permanently dead. You're coming back. This is not your permanent death. So this is kind of a taste, a foretaste of what death is like. But you're not permanently dead. You're just clinically dead. But you still have some of the attributes of what the Bible talks about in terms of a judgment. So I think that's reassuring for Christians like me who used to think, oh, that's New Age stuff. Near-death experience, that's weird. There have been, Tucker, 900 scholarly articles written about near-death experiences in medical journals and scientific journals over the last 50 years. This is a very well-researched area, and they have concluded that there is no natural explanation that can account for all of the aspects of a near-death experience. It's a fascinating area, and so I interview, as I said, John Burke, who's an expert on them, to give examples of this sort of thing.
What about pre-death?
Yes, this is
death visions.
This is new.
Can I just add one editorial comment?
Yeah.
I'm so filled with rage, I have to do it. That our culture systematically excludes real conversations about death. Obviously, we're very pro-death. Kill your baby, euthanize your parents, whatever. We're all about death. But the actual experience of death is kind of cloaked from most people. And I don't think they have any idea what it is when someone dies, the process of dying. And so this is a welcome conversation.
Tucker, it's fascinating, these deathbed visions. The difference between a near-death experience and a deathbed vision is in a near-death experience, a person's going to come back.
Right.
In a deathbed vision, this is a vision someone has just before they die. They're not coming back. I mean, they're permanently going to die. But we see a biblical example of this in the book of Acts. We see Stephen, who is described as being full of the Holy Spirit, who is on the verge of being stoned to death. And he looks up and he sees the heavens open up and he sees the Father and the Son together. So this has a biblical precedent. But what is fascinating, and I think what you said is so true, people don't like to talk about it because
at all.
Yeah, at all. Because if you have one of these experiences before you die, they're going to think I've got dementia. They're going to think I'm nuts. They're going to think, So a lot of people don't like to talk about it. So there's a researcher. He went to a huge hospice facility in New York State, and they went to all the dying people, and they said, please, as a favor, if you have a vision, a dream unlike any you've ever had, tell us. Would you tell us? And so 88% of those dying people had a pre-death vision that they reported on before they died. 88%. I think the other 12% probably had one, but they died before they were able to say anything.
Or they were so high on morphine they couldn't talk.
That's true. People get drugged up. That's true.
So there's that. I mean, obviously, you don't want people to suffer. You want to alleviate suffering and alleviate pain. I'm totally for that. Want to be clear about it. But there's also this custom which has grown to ubiquity. Now it's everybody who dies gets from the hospice nurses.
Yeah.
They kill you with morphine. I mean, no one wants to say that out loud, but I've seen it. They kill you with morphine.
Yeah.
And okay, first we should just be honest about what's happening.
Yeah.
Always. But second, we should be clear about the cost. So if everybody on the way out is getting visions of some kind, maybe there's a purpose to those visions. And maybe we shouldn't short circuit that.
And Tucker, there's also corroboration for these. So in other words, they did one study of 3,000 of these, and they determined this is not just something coming from the subconscious mind. There is something else here. And I'll give you the example of the corroboration. There was a woman named Doris. She's dying on her deathbed, and she has a pre-death vision. And she sees the heavens open up, and she sees angelic beings. And she sees her father, who had died several years earlier, and he's kind of almost welcoming her to the next realm. But then she gets this confused look on her face, and she says, wait a minute. Why is Vida with my father? Why would Vida be there? It makes no sense. Why would Vida be there? And then she died. Vida was her sister. Her sister had died 2 weeks earlier, but no one had told Doris because she was so ill, they didn't want the news to kill her. So they withheld the news that her sister Vida had died, and yet on her deathbed, she sees Vida in the world to come. That is fairly common. It actually happened with my father-in-law. So that to me is a corroboration. Another form of corroboration, get this, in the Bible, in Luke 16, there's a story of a rich man and a beggar who both die.
Yes.
And the rich man goes to a place of torment.
Yeah.
And the beggar goes to a place of bliss.
The rich man, by the way, has walked past the poor man every day.
That's right.
And ignored him. So the beggar, according to Jesus in verse 22, is accompanied by angels to heaven.
that angels accompany him to heaven. And what's particularly fascinating is people who have pre-death visions often see angels coming for them, just as Jesus suggested in that parable. So, for instance, the most famous skeptic in Canada, Charles Templeton. Charles Templeton was the pulpit partner of Billy Graham. He was going to be the great evangelist. But then he went to a liberal seminary. He lost his faith. He wrote an ugly book called Farewell to God, My Reasons for Rejecting the Christian Faith. And I got to know him. He became a friend. I actually wrote a book called The Case for Faith, where I answered all his objections to Christianity. And we became friends. Anyway, he ended up coming back to faith in Christ before he died. And then he's on his deathbed. And he calls out to his wife, Madeline. Madeline, what, Chuck? Can you see them? What are you talking about? They're in the room. You can't see them. They're right here in this room. They're the angels. They're coming for me. Oh, they're so beautiful. Look at them. The singing is so beautiful. They're coming for me. I'm going to heaven. I'm going to be with God. That is incredibly common, that people will see angels coming for them in that vision they had before they died. Now here's another bit of corroboration. Children who are dying will see angels, but not like you would expect them to be seen. In other words, let's say a 5-year-old who's dying. What is their image of an angel? Well, it's a furry thing or feathery thing with big wings, right? It's a cartoon, right? It's a cartoon. They all have big wings. And so there's a case from a doctoral dissertation I read of a little girl who was dying, and she says, Mommy, can you see the angels? They're coming for me. Oh, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. Their eyes, look at their eyes. And the mother didn't want to disappoint her. So she said, oh, yeah, I see them. Look at their big wings. And the little girl said, oh, Mommy, they don't have wings. And she was able to describe them in vivid detail before she died.
Wow.
You would think if a child of that age was going to have just a vision from their imagination of angels coming for them, they would have big wings. They don't.
It would be the Hallmark version, yeah.
That's right. And in case after case, they don't see the big wings. And by the way, the Bible doesn't say that all angels have wings. So that to me is another very interesting dynamic of these pre-death visions.
Not all people on their deathbed have joyful visions.
That's right.
Or reunited with loved ones in the next world.
Yes.
There are many people who are in terror.
Yes.
And horrified.
Yes.
And can you describe that, and what is it?
Yes. We have this in near-death experiences and in deathbed visions, where people who are about to die have a glimpse, I believe, of a hellish experience to come. And they are frightened beyond belief and scared beyond words. I'll give you an example of a near-death vision where this happened. There's a man named Howard Storm. Howard was an atheist. He was a professor of art at a secular university, chairman of the art department, and he was visiting France, and he died of a heart attack. So here he is. He's in a French hospital. He's dead. But he said later, I was conscious the whole time. It was a near-death experience. His spirit had separated from his body. And there were some people in the hallway say, Howard, we've been waiting for you. Come with us. Come with us. So he does. And he's walking down the hallway. His spirit is walking down the hallway with these people. And it goes on and on and on. And it gets darker and darker. And then they're becoming abusive. And they're saying, come on, why are you so slow? And then they start to attack him. And he said, no horror movie can ever capture the horror of what they did to me. I mean, he was absolutely mauled. He said, I was roadkill. And he said, I called out to God.
Mauled, like physically mauled.
Yes. Eyes gouged out, ears ripped off, just horror. And he calls out to Jesus, Jesus, rescue me. And this white orb comes and brings him and rescues him from that, and he is restored. Well, ultimately, his body is revived. His spirit returns to his body. This is such a profound experience that he not only renounced his atheism, he not only quit his tenured position as chairman of the art department at a secular university, he not only became a Christian, he went to seminary and he became a pastor. And today he's a pastor of this little church. I think it's in Kentucky or Oklahoma or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, serving God. That's how transformative this experience was.
Amazing.
But there are multiple cases of people having horrific. In fact, one study of near-death experiences said it was 24% had negative experiences, not positive.
Doesn't feel like a good sign.
No. I mean, what it does to me is it's affirmation that, you know what the Bible tells us is true. There is a heaven, there is a hell. And
every
these are real
society
places.
ever has thought that.
Yeah,
every
that's right.
society. And I think everyone intuitively knows that.
Yeah.
I've never had a near-death experience, but the one time I thought I was going to die many years ago was in a plane crash. I was filled with sadness. I had no peace at all.
Yeah.
None. Only regret.
Yeah.
So I did take that as an indication I should change the way I was living, and I did.
Well, God used that in your life.
Well, I felt that way, and certainly in retrospect, I think that.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, "Wow, I'm going to die." I was certain of it, and I thought later. I thought that when people knew they were going to die, they were filled with like peace and warmth and walk toward the light. That was not my experience at all. It was like, man, I can't believe I did a few things. And I really felt sad about it. So,
well, that's the reality.
Well, but I guess it was the reality that I experienced for sure. But I also think that it's what a blessing.
Yes.
To have an opportunity to, to turn back and change.
That's the thing about these near-death experiences, that you have another chance. You don't have it in deathbed vision, but you're going to be revived, and then you have a choice to make. Is that the road I continue to want to go down?
The first thing I did was quit drinking and then had a fourth child.
Wow. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was literally awesome. Wow. So, yes. So I think that there's something real there, and it does seem like a crime of some kind to deprive people of that with drugs.
I know.
If everyone experiences it, just like anything else, like maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
It's not random.
Maybe. I'd encourage people who are watching or listening to this podcast, next time you have a big family get together with the cousins and the uncles and the aunts and everything, ask people, do we have any family stories about deathbed visions or near-death experiences? I betcha you'll find, Uncle Bob had that experience, or Cousin Jim had that experience. I was having dinner with 7 people in Oklahoma City, and 4 of them, we talked about this, 4 of them had relatives who had pre-death visions.
I'm not surprised.
It's incredible.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.